You are an educator. You have a choice of virtual worlds. You can go where you choose. What makes SpotOn3D.com different? Our easy press tools make presentation native. Easy inventory go from grid to grid. Universal registration. Universal avatars. EduMerge and micro-community. Community conference center. 100 people on a cloud. Free forever accounts with 5 avatars. Premium membership with full production level skills. Protection. SpotOn3D.com. Different. Hello, and welcome back to GRIDwrap. Unfortunately, our co-host Tessa Harrington is not very well today. She's had a return of her illness, a cold basically, and so we don't have her sitting on the end of the sofa. Still, the show must go on, and we have still our special guest tonight, Sigmund Leominster. Hello, Sigmund.
Hey, how's it going?
You may, well, I'm not even going to answer that question. So you may know Sigmund from, he's a member of the news team of MBC News, and he is a well-known journalist on and around the grids of Second Life, and occasionally beyond, I think. Is that right, Sigmund?
Oh, very occasionally.
Well, only occasionally. Okay. Why Second Life, and why journalism?
You know, I got into Second Life, oh crikey, nearly 4 years ago, and the intent at that time was just to explore. Somebody had mentioned it to me, and I'd thought, okay, I'll give this a whirl and see what it's like. So I wasn't intending to do anything particular at the time. Anyway, I did what most people did, came in here, I tried things, visited places, started getting my avatar sorted, and then decided maybe after about 3 months that there had to be some purpose to what I was doing here, which is when I started writing for various periodicals that are actually in Second Life.
Oh, right. So, I mean, why writing? Is that something that you are drawn to in real life?
Yes, in real life, I guess I do a lot of, well, should I say, I work in research and development, but I've also done work in marketing. I do articles, I do presentations, I travel around quite a lot. So anyway, I thought that this would be a really good excuse for me to do some writing, which is not academic, which is not aimed at particular audiences, and I could do what I really wanted to do, which is have some experience of writing about stuff that was, I shouldn't say inconsequential, but wasn't important in the sense that it means I do it for my job or whatever.
Oh, could I ask you to put your Second Life voice on, please, Sigmund?
Okay, let's try that again.
Thank you. Okay, so it's on now, right? Okay, thank you. So, Sigmund, you're saying that's inconsequential, or not inconsequential, but it's important. And I think one of the things, somebody was asking me to say, well, what am I talking, what are we talking about journalism for? And I said, well, because it's about the dissemination of information throughout virtual worlds. There are various ways of doing that, but it's also about entertainment. It's not about, being academic, as you say. And so what do you find entertaining to write about? And does anybody read it?
I believe people do read it. What do I tell? Well, let me tell you what I first started writing about. I started writing about fashion. So I used to spend a fair chunk of my time going around Second Life shopping, buying clothes, and writing about it, which is a great way of doing it, because I discovered that if I wrote about it and got paid for doing it, I was then able to go out and buy more stuff. So those first days working for, this was Free Life magazine, which has since closed, but I spent over a year as one of the the male fashion consultants, which is just what I'm not in real life. But what was interesting, and this goes back to this notion of inconsequential. What's interesting is that you start to find that people take this stuff seriously. And, I think a lot of people start Second Life thinking that it's a joke, it's a bit of a game, you're going to get points for doing stuff, and then they find there are no points. And it becomes more of an existential experience, because your life in Second Life is determined by what you want it to be. It really is a case of you have to decide what you want. There are no points for finding jewels. You don't get scores for things like that. So you have to decide what you want to do. And what I started to discover was these people who were making clothes that they were selling in a virtual world really enjoyed what they were doing, and they had a purpose in life. And so it wasn't just that you got to write about this, but you actually got to talk to people about what they were doing and why they were doing it. So the notion of inconsequential changed. It became consequential. People have their dreams, their desires, their hopes, they do it, and I got to write about those things. So that's really where I started. I started with what I was the inconsequential stuff of fashion. But of course, then I started reporting on fashion shows. So I was invited along to meet various people and had supermodels to my friends list, which was... That's okay, yeah. But it came, it actually became a job. And it's always strange when you tell people that you have a job in Second Life. But it's true. In fact, a lot of people seem to have jobs in Second Life. So writing about fashion and then getting hooked on the notion of going out shopping and buying stuff became consequential.
Amazing. So having a job, however unwittingly you may have walked into that, has that taken away any of your enjoyment?
No. In fact, it adds to it. Now, let me also, like most people, I spent maybe my first year and a half building up my Second Life time. So it got to the point where it really was a Second Life. So you're looking at, I'd be doing like a 10-hour work day and then spending 6 hours in the evening in Second Life and going to bed at 3 in the morning and getting up at 7. And that's not necessarily atypical of folks who are using Second Life as a entertainment. But after a while, I realized that that was not sustainable. And after a couple of things cropping up in real life that actually cut back on time, what I really did was to refocus on when I do go to Second Life, I spend most of it doing either, investigating for stuff, writing stuff, working with MBC, and a little social time. But now I restrict it. So when I'm in world, the fact that I have a job gives me a purpose, it gives me something to do, I know what I'm doing, and I feel like I'm doing something and not just wandering around aimlessly with nothing to do. So that sense of purpose has been important, I think, for keeping me almost now, I think, 4 years on in Second Life.
So that's really become... have you ever thought of taking journalism into first life, as it were, into real life?
There's an interesting comment, because one of the things I think we're seeing in the world of journalism in general is that the boundaries between what you would call traditional real-life journalism and the citizen journalist is becoming much narrower. There are now, I suspect, more blogs on the internet than there are people to read them. And it is not unusual for bloggers to be, in some instances, the primary news source for information. And there are bloggers out there who make a living out of what they're doing. Now, appealing as that might be, I don't really think that's what I want to do, because there are other things I want to do in life. But the demarcation between what we would say would be traditional and non-traditional has certainly dwindled. And if you talk to, again, a number of the real-life journalists out there, and I've managed to talk to a few of them, that's something they recognize as being a reality. That you may have trained for years to be a journalist, but there are folks out there now who are coming in from the internet and doing a job and earning money. And the problem, that to a certain extent, is now there's always a difficulty in getting what you might call the truth. The push to be first starts to interfere, and people make mistakes. And the quality overall of some journalism and writing can fall. And I think that's where we are at the moment, where we can, you look at the real world, for example, the Times, the UK, the London Times, and the Sunday Times, who are now moving towards charging for access to their website.
Well, they've already started, actually.
Right, and and now you pay. When I was out there last week, I think it was £1 for the first month, and then it's something like £10 a month. I'm not sure after. But here's the other thing that's affecting this is that people no longer see the news as a commodity for which you pay money. People see the news as something as you get for free. And, the acquisition of news still depends on somebody with feet on the street going out and talking to people. But who pays them, and how do you get paid? Well, if you're a big newspaper and people are not buying your newspaper but going to your website, and you've got staff on there, you're still going to pay for them. So one of the other crises I think that we're seeing at the moment in journalism is the move from information being something you pay for to information something you get for free. And that extends even into the general area of things like currently the FCC in the US looking at this notion of net neutrality, the notion of access to the internet. Many people feel that access to the internet should be either free or available to everybody at all times. And the big problem, or the big discussion at the moment that's going on with the FCC and the wireless people, is the people who have wireless companies like Verizon and AT&T are saying, well, it's expensive to run these networks, and you can't all get free internet. And so we think that we should, wireless internet should be treated slightly different from the wired internet, and you may have to charge more or pay more for that privilege. And people are not used to it. People expect it to be free. And that's the same with the news. People expect it to be free. And the same, I think, went for and still going for the music industry, where people now feel that it's fair game to download it for nothing. But somebody somewhere needs to be paid.
Yeah, somebody somewhere is paying. So, okay, so what about, how does this affect virtual worlds, do you think? I mean, we broadcast a news program, which is effectively free, but it's not free because we pay to do it effectively. How's this going to work? There was Reuters, wasn't there, in Second Life at one point, and they've actually left and gone, but they did have a Reuters correspondent in Second Life for quite some time.
Absolutely. Reuters did it, and CNN had their embedded reporters as well. And if we think back, actually, it's probably almost 18 months now, time flies. Remember the Avastar, which was a newspaper which was owned by, I think it was the same German company who did Bild magazine, but it's a real world, these are real world news organizations who were looking to have a presence in Second Life. Now, I think part of the reason that they failed, and again, this is just my opinion, so people can flame me with it, but I think that why they failed is because they were using a business model that was, predicated on how the real world works, and how you have